guys, how's it going? Hope you're all doing well. Okay, so I meant for this video to come out on Indie Animation Day, but it took a little longer than I expected, but I'm here now. What is it that I'm doing here, you asked? No, I asked how you got into my house. I'm so glad you asked! I'm here to talk to you about the pilot episode for my developing series, and what I've been able to do so far. So, grab a snack, get comfy, wrap yourself up in a blanket, it's very cold outside, and I'll share with you how everything is going. From now on, I'm going to be talking in a relatively familiar way about the show since my reintroduction video is already up, so if you haven't watched that one yet, I really recommend checking it out so you're up to speed on the show. This video is mostly an update/progress report on how the early stages of the pilot are going so far. First and foremost, you may have noticed that I haven't said the series name just yet. That's because it has a new title. The series and the town it's set in is now called Moorewood Hollow. I've been wanting to change the name to something else for a while now, mainly because the name Oakwood Hollow already appears in a couple pieces of fiction and I just didn't know. Also, I think it's the name of an Etsy store, so in order to have a more original name and to avoid confusion, I landed on Moorewood Hollow instead. I like this name a lot better because it reminds me of one of my favorite horror comedy movies, American Werewolf in London, specifically in the case...
Stay on the road. Keep clear of the moors.
I thought it could be a fun way to reference it and add to the tourism of the town, telling people things like, beware the haunts of Moorewood Hollow, that kind of thing. Now on to how the actual episode is progressing. A couple of you might have known already, but I tried to be as offline as possible during the month of January, and I did this partially to give myself a break from being constantly blasted with terrible news every time I opened any app at all, and partially so I could focus more on some visual development. The most exciting update is that I'm done with the first draft of the storyboard. And by that I mean there are dozens upon dozens of 2-inch drawings in my sketchbook. Seriously, there's over like 60 pages in that thing dedicated to thumbnails. I think there's like over 700 thumbnail images in total. I'm using that specific sketchbook to work on concept art for the pilot and the series that I'm hoping follows it, and I'm like 2/3 of the way finished with it right now. It's already full of new developments and a couple of the drawings in there are already outdated. I even adjusted and edited the script a couple times as I was working to better fit with the visuals. I recently switched gears again from visual art to writing. One piece of advice I got early on from a friend and former classmate of mine was to work on a pitch bible and an outline for the series. I don't plan on pitching the series to any mainstream studios or anything, but it'll be good to have a summary to help guide whatever team I want to build on how the story should go. I want to try and keep the outline relatively flexible because I want to give other people room to pitch some ideas of their own so we can figure out how to make the plot work from episode to episode. The pitch bible is definitely helping with that as well. It's been particularly helpful thinking of plots for sample episodes that I have in mind. Turns out dumping the ideas you have in your brain onto paper is actually very helpful. Who would have guessed? Right now the current plan is to finish the pitch bible and outline, make a little more viz dev art, and then switch back over to digitizing the storyboard into an animatic. I'm also taking some advice from a voice actor friend of mine and finishing a draft of the actual animatic with some dialogue from the script captioned to give any potential VAs some visual aid. Once the animatic is being worked on, that's when I'll probably open the project up a little more and ask people to help out with production. I think that does it for general announcements, but I also figured it would be fun to open up a funny little Q&A session for a video. I asked across a few of my socials if any of you had any questions about Moorewood Hollow's pilot, the characters, or the overall series, and I got some pretty good ones from a bunch of you. So without further ado, let's skip to those. Who are the main characters of the show, and which characters do you enjoy working with the most? Alright, so to recap real quick, we got Carlos, the main protagonist, a social outcast who talks to dead people and carries around a baseball bat. Maya, sunshine personified in the amalgamation of every creative person I've ever met. Andy, logical but distant goth who doesn't like people. Ben, nerd! Naomi, shy but excitable bookworm. And Robin, gender-fluid menace who rolls around at the speed of sound. I talked about those 6 in my previous video about Moorewood Hollow, but another crucial character to the series who I haven't really talked much about yet is Sylvia Martinez. She's Carlos's grandmother, who their family affectionately nicknames Lita. She's a seasoned medium and clairvoyant, and she acts as a sort of guide for the rest of the kids. She's very kind and extremely intelligent, and she always seems to know more about people than they remember telling her. She gets a little kick out of using her abilities to mess with people, saying things like, I've been expecting you, and then telling them simple things that she can deduce from just looking at them. As for who my favorites are, I like all the main characters for different reasons, but I think one of my favorites right now might be Carlos. Which is probably a good thing, considering he's the star of the show. His character has been one of the most fun to write recently because he has a lot of traits that I like in characters. He's a rebellious and determined kid, but he's also really sweet and fun to be around once you get to know him. He values his relationships above all else and he's loyal to the end. He also has a really strong sense of right and wrong. If he sees any kind of injustice or someone being mistreated, he won't stand by and let them suffer. He'll step in and put a stop to it without question. He's also a really fun character in terms of research. Carlos and his family have some Mexican blood in them, so I've been using that as an excuse to learn more about Mexican ghost stories and how death as a whole is viewed in Mexican culture. This includes things like how Dia de los Muertos is celebrated, or stories like La Llorona or La Planchada. That one was one of my personal favorite stories, by the way. Or learning how ancient cultures approach death in the afterlife. Did you guys know that the souls of fallen Aztec warriors or Aztec women who died from childbirth were thought to return to Earth in the form of hummingbirds? I sure didn't, but that is a really cool aspect of hummingbirds in my opinion. What's your series framework plan? Will it be a Monster of the Week show, or will it be an overall narrative? I definitely plan on the story having an overarching narrative. While I do plan on featuring one of the Hollow's ghosts in each episode throughout the show, I won't just be hitting the reset button once the credits roll. Carlos and his friends are the stars of the show, and while they chose to take on the responsibility of helping the town's spirits pass on, the story revolves around them, their personalities, and their relationships. If they successfully cleanse a haunt, that ghost won't appear again for the rest of the series. Additionally, if a character gets hurt, or a building gets knocked down, or a relationship changes, it'll stay that way. This also means that a number of different arcs might take place throughout the story, and they'll play out fully if you watch all the episodes in order. Is this a 100% solo project, or are you planning on getting help on this? I am absolutely planning on getting help with this. I will not be able to make this episode on my own. Certainly not if I plan to make it into a full series. I mentioned in my previous Moorewood Hollow video that I'm planning on taking the majority of the storyboarding and a chunk of the artwork by myself, but there are plenty of aspects of the production side of things that I'll need extra help with. A lot of that will come in the form of getting help with voice acting or post-production. I've asked a couple friends and colleagues for help already, I've had other friends who offered to help me, and I still have people in mind who I want to ask. Are there any main antagonists? There are a couple of main antagonists that I'd like to keep a little closer to my chest for the time being, but I can tell you about the ones we meet during the pilot. The first and probably most prevalent for a while will be one of the school's main bullies, Brock. When I was making him, I was channeling all the rich, popular jocks from early 2000s cartoons, and a couple of people who I knew from personal experience. Brock is extremely charismatic, and he knows how to get on people's good side, and that's the main reason he's at the top of the school's social hierarchy. He picks on people who he deems as weaker or different than them, and he thinks he's doing a service to quote-unquote normal people by doing so. His two lackeys, Chase and Josh, usually help carry out his torment of other students. Chase is smaller in size, but he's usually smart enough to notice other students' insecurities and use that to his advantage. Whereas Josh is larger and more intimidating, usually using his muscle to scare people into giving him what he wants. The three of them usually get away with their antics because of Brock's dad, Principal Riggs. Carlos unfortunately has what most small-town school staff would call a reputation. Principal Riggs has seen Carlos and his son Brock fight and argue their entire childhood, and Riggs thinks his son can do no wrong. Brock is his precious golden child football star baby! Certainly these altercations aren't his fault, no, it must be that social outcast and his rowdy friends who are making all this trouble. That's all I'll say about them for now, but yes, that group does act as an obstacle for the freaks to overcome. Are there any secret plot points? Yeah, Carlos has been dead the entire time. Nah, I'm just messing with you, I wouldn't do that. Will there be original music to go along with the animation? I sure hope so. I'd love to have an original soundtrack for the show. That's a huge part of why I want to learn more about how to make music. It's also possible that I'll be enlisting the help of someone with a little more skills in music to help me make it. But either way, it's one of the aspects of production that I'm the most excited about. One of my favorite instruments is the synthesizer, and I heard some really cool, atmospheric horror tracks that were made using a synth. I really want the music to have a similar feel to some of Carl Casey or Brandon Boone's work. And finally, who among the cast could beat up the most zombies? Oh, I have been wanting to talk about this. Honestly, I've been kind of debating on whether or not I want to include zombies in the actual show at some point, but I'm not really sure how to fit them in. But anyway, to answer the question, I feel like it's a two-way tie between Carlos and Robin as to who would have the highest body count. Carlos has a fucking bat, y'all. He carries it with him just about everywhere he goes, but he only ever uses it when he absolutely has to. He's pretty coordinated with his bat since he played some baseball as a kid, and he's had some practice using it on particularly dangerous entities, so he'd have no problem absolutely braining a bunch of zombies. I don't think he'd go full-on Negan mode and wrap it in barbed wire or anything like that though, because it's his granddad's baseball bat, so he has some sentimental value to how it looks. As for Robin, she's a part of a roller derby team. She has plenty of experience knocking people around on her wheels and pushing through them without getting hurt. I feel like they'd trick out their helmet and safety gear with a bunch of spikes and stuff along with carrying some kind of weapon. And unlike roller derby, where you're actually required to wear traditional four-wheeled roller skates, she'd be free to speed around jamming the shit out of zombies on her blades! I also have an idea that at one point in the story he saved somebody by chucking one of his blades at a possessed statue or something and taking its head down. So she could fully decapitate a zombie if she wanted. And yeah, that about does it for this video. This was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for watching, and thanks to those of you who provided me with some questions. I'm excited to get back to work. Make sure to keep an eye out for some additional works in progress I'll be sharing around, and have a lovely day, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye! His two lackeys Chase and Josh. Chase and Josh. Why are those names so hard to pronounce? Whereas Josh is such a papa.